Thank you, Morgan. This is our last week of the series, Teach Us to Pray, where we've been walking through the Psalms and learning how to pray. And this is our final week. And I've entitled this one, Hide and Seek. How many of you have ever played hide and seek? I hope every hand raised up, because seriously, if you haven't played hide and seek, there's probably a big hole missing in your childhood. Or if you're a parent or a grandparent, you are missing something important in hide and seek. Now, one of the issues we have in our house is with 6 of us, there's not very many places to hide. And so I get this, I have to do this sometimes. We get the blanket, and I have to throw it over myself. And I got to hide there. And then inevitably, Sydney comes up and goes, I want to hide with you. And so now me and Sydney are here under the blanket. It's getting entirely too warm. Thankfully, it was 50 degrees earlier this week. So it's now it's entirely too warm, and he's giggling, thinking no one can find him, obviously giving himself up for his sisters to find. Or for mommy to find them. Mommy just decides that she's going to just tickle both of us. And now our hide and seek game has become nothing but a tickle fight. But there's alternatives to this game. In fact, one of the things that my girls love to do, and they watched it last night, was watch and play Where's Waldo? This is actually a picture of the largest Waldo gathering. I think it was in Ireland a couple years ago, where they had thousands of individuals. In fact, I'm planning for the next time, so I have the costume. No, I'm not. Where's Waldo? In fact, they were watching it last night. Waldo tours the world. He tells you about different cultures. They're watching it, and I'm preparing for this sermon, and I hear it from the other room, and I had this sitting next to me, so I quickly threw on the cap and the glasses and the shirt, and I jump out and go, "You can't find me!" And they screamed and screamed. So I have to give you some facts about Where's Waldo. Where's Waldo is sold in 50 different countries and in 26 different languages. It was originally published in England in 1987, so next year it will be 40 years old. And over 39 years, that means there are more than 73 million Where's Waldo books sold. We happen to have 5 of them at our household. But the most interesting thing is Where's Waldo was originally published in England as Where is Wally? And when it made the jump across the pond, the publisher didn't like the name Wally because it reminded the publisher of Wallace Simpson. Well, we got to change the name. And so they changed it in the American version from Wally to Waldo, which started a craze because every time Where's Waldo is published in a different country, they change the name. So in Germany, it is Where's Walter? In France, it's Where's Charlie? In Vietnam, it's Where's Van Lang? In Lithuania, it's Where's Jonas? And this one is a little different for me. In Italy, it's Where's Yabaldo? One of these things is not like the other. But that makes us come to our sermon today. Psalms 139. I have a feeling I had to lose the hat part of the way through the sermon because it's my hair is starting to get hot and itchy. But Psalms 139 is a prayer and a supplication. At the highest level, it's a God that is always there. It doesn't matter where you go, God is there. It doesn't matter who you are, God knows you because He forms you. God is always with you and always knows you. And I have 3 major points I want to make in the first 18 verses of Psalms 139. The first is this, that prayer doesn't begin with finding God. Prayer begins when we realize that God is already there. I'm going to go out on a limb. It's going to be kind of silly, so bear with me. We have another game at the Urban household. It's like hot and cold, but it's really hard to search for an object, so that's just random. And so we have this toy that makes noise. My wife is giving me the... So I have to go forward now. Because if I stop right now and just skip over this portion, you guys will be waited with bated breath of what I'm about to show you. You see, it's a thing called Silly Poopy. I have ours. And you turn it on. And it says, let's play hide and seek. And you hit the button, and you go hide it. And at various points and times, Silly Poopy will make this sound as the kids look for Silly Poopy.
Can somebody please find me?
I did not time that at all. And then when the kids find it, you hit the button and it plays a little song. They really wanted me to play this song so they could come up and just start dancing to the You Found Silly Poopy song. But here's the thing. Silly Poopy is in the room, it's in the house, and it needs found, but God is not a God that needs found. He is available at all times. He doesn't need to make a sound to be found. He is always there and available. He doesn't need to go, yoo-hoo, come find me. He's always available. Prayer doesn't begin with finding God. Prayer begins when we realize that God is already there. Oh Lord, you have searched me and known me. You know when I sit down and when I rise up. You discern my thoughts from far away. You search out my path and my lying down and are acquainted with all of my ways. This past Friday, Elena and I have celebrated 15 years together as a couple. And I know I have quite a ways to go to some of you guys, but the last 15 years has been absolutely amazing when you find your other half. Because there are moments where I'll pull out my phone and start texting, I love you, and I immediately see the 3 dots because we realize that we are picking up our phones at the same time, about to text each other, I love you, at the same exact moment, even though we're hours away from each other. It's kind of scary sometimes when you realize that you know the thoughts of the other person. Sometimes she doesn't know what she wants for dinner, and I'm just like, I'm feeling this. And it maybe just hit. Now, it doesn't happen all the time. I get the dirty look when I make a bad choice, or it's not what she really wants, but I want it, and it's not, I get some of that. But sometimes when it hits the spot, or sometimes when I'm just sitting in the chair and she looks over like, what are you thinking about? I'm not thinking about anything. I got the laugh because obviously she knows that I'm thinking about her, something. It's great to have that type of relationship where someone knows you so intimately, where you're sitting at the dinner table and you just hand the pepper over. I didn't ask for it, but I know you will. That's an intimacy. That's knowing someone deeply. And that's how God knows us. So intimately, so deeply, He knows our thoughts. He knows when we sit down, when we rise up. He knows our paths and our lyings of down. But we've had the opposite relationships too, where someone doesn't know who we are. There's This one time I was in the Air Force and I got really, really sick. I ended up throwing up just for 12 hours, just throwing up. And it happened twice a week. And so I go to the doctor. Oh, you got food poisoning. I don't think it's food poisoning. No, it's food poisoning. Trust me, I'm a doctor. 3 days later, I come in and I'm still throwing up. Oh, you're lactose intolerant. I've never had an allergy before. Now I'm developing it at 22 years old. Yeah, you're lactose intolerant. 3 days later, I'm coming back still throwing up. You don't PT enough. I'm in the military. We PT 3 times a week, PT physical training. And by the way, I'm playing tennis 5 times a week. I'm doing 2 a days and sometimes. I'm not PTing enough. This guy doesn't know me, doesn't listen to me, is not there. Maybe physically we're in the same room, in the exam room, but mentally he's not listening to me. After the 3rd time, how many times do you think I went back to that doctor? Never again. Because anytime I was sick, I'll just go to the emergency room. Because that doctor doesn't know me. That doctor's not listening to me. That doctor doesn't really care about me. So why would I go and see him again? I'll go to someone else. But God is not that type of God. God is intimately familiar with who we are. If you look at the entire chapter of Psalms 139, some form of the verb know is there 7 times. And I know we have some Bible scholars in here. If there's something that's mentioned 7 times, that is a complete knowing. Even before a word on my tongue, O Lord, you know it completely. You hem me in behind and before. And lay your hand upon me. One of the things I like to do is I like to translate the Bible into Ianish. It's a specific language that I have for myself. Elena's getting used to it. After 15 years, I think she's 80% of the way there. There's something called Ianish. And this hem me in behind and before, it really, what does this mean? That's when Piper runs across. And I remember when she was born and the nurses in the delivery room was teaching me how to swaddle. How to put her little arms in the body and have the diamond-shaped the blanket, and you got to fold it over and fold it over and fold it under and make sure and wrap her really tight. And Piper inevitably was so strong she would punch her way out. And I have to re-swaddle her again, and she'd punch her way out. And I have to re-swaddle her again and again and again. And eventually I just gave up. The swaddling is important because it simulates the tightness of the womb. It gives them comfort. It prevents that random reflex. I don't know if I've done it. On a Sunday afternoon, I'll be sitting in the rocking chair, and the sports are going, and I start, ugh! It prevents babies from doing that reflex when you're sort of in that twilight zone, and you're not quite dosed. Swaddling the baby. Maybe I read verse 5 as you swaddle me behind and before, and you lay your hand upon me. Every morning I wake up Sydney, and we go downstairs, and he goes, Daddy, I want to snuggle with a blanket. We sit, and if I don't grab the blanket, he lets me know that he wants to snuggle with a blanket. Jesus, you swaddle me. Jesus, snuggle with me in a blankie. He wants to watch Baby Shark, though. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is so high that I cannot attain it. This verse, according to the Believer's Commentary, talks about the awestruck, reverent awe of the mystery of an omnipotent, all-knowing God that knows us that deeply and intimately. Prayer doesn't begin with finding God. Prayer begins when we realize that God is already there. The second point is prayer reminds us that God is always present, even when we don't want God to see what we're doing. As I think about the 5 books of Where's Waldo, I think about the scenes that he's in. I remember the Colosseum and a Renaissance fair and maybe Egypt or outer space. He could be with the Aztecs. It could be a marketplace or a mall. Every one of the Waldo scenes has hundreds of characters. And the author specifically puts these Easter eggs there to draw your attention. So you are no longer looking for Waldo. But he's there with his red and white knit cap and his glasses and his red and white striped shirt. Waldo is always present, even when we don't see him. Where can I go from your spirit, or where can I flee from your presence? If I ascend to heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in Sheol, you are there. If I take the wings of the morning and settle at the farthest limits of the seas, even there your hand shall lead me, and your right hand shall hold me fast. The commentary talked about how in the morning the sun will rise in the east, and the farthest limits of the sea, if you're writing from ancient Israel as David is, that sea is the Mediterranean, and it's at the west. And even in verse 10, allegorizes that your left hand shall lead me to the north, and your right hand shall hold me fast to the south. It doesn't matter which compass direction you go, God is there. Someone made mention of the music this morning, and I said there was one song that I wish I would have added. It was something that came to me at the last minute, and I really wished I would have added East to West by Casting Crowns. Because how far are my sins separated from me, from the east to the west, from one nail-scarred hand to the other? It doesn't matter how far I go, Christ is there. And he separates me as far as possible from my sins through his atoning sacrifice. If I say, surely the darkness shall cover me, and the light around me becomes night, even the darkness is not dark to you. Jesus has those glow-in-the-dark eyes that can see. He's like a cat. Even the darkness is not dark to you. The night is as bright as day, for the darkness is as light to you. Although Jesus is a lot nicer than my cats, because every morning they start meowing at me and they start headbutting me because, of course, they could see, there could be a lot of food, but they could see the bottom of that dish. There is a little silver at the bottom of my food dish. You must feed me. Prayer is a reminder that God is always present, even when we don't want God to see. My last point is prayer lets God form us instead of letting everything else form us. For it was you who formed my inward parts. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you, for I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works that I know very well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was being made in secret, intricately woven in the depths of the earth. Your eyes behold my unformed substance. In your book were written all the days that I were formed to me, when none of them yet existed. How weighty to me are your thoughts, O God? How vast is the sum of them? I try to count them. They are more than the sand. I come to the end. I am still with you. The author of Where's Waldo, Martin Handford, came up with the idea when, during the time there was pictures of busy scenes. And he thought of doing something similar when the publisher goes, why don't you write a guy that you would have to find? A world-traveling, time-traveling guy. And that's when the author specifically molded a guy with a red hat and glasses and a red and white shirt. He formed him specifically so that you could find him across the 73 million books that have been published. And just like the author has formed Waldo, God has formed every single one of us. But I must let God's view and perspective of me control who I am and not let anything else. I'm reminded of the book of Judges in chapter 6 where Gideon is thrashing the wheat in a wine press. Now, if you thrash wheat, you're usually doing it in an open space so the wind could take the chaff and blow it away and the wheat falls down. But he's not in a barn. He's not on a hilltop. He is down low in a wine press because Gideon is scared. Gideon's working, but he's scared of the Philistines. So he's hiding. And as he's thrashing this wheat in his hidden place, an angel of the Lord comes to him. The Lord is with you. The Lord is present with you. It doesn't matter if it's in a barn or on a hill or in a wine press. The Lord is with you, mighty warrior. If I was looking at Gideon at that moment, I wouldn't call him a mighty warrior. I would call him a scaredy cat. That his belly's running yellow. But God sees him for what God made him to be. A mighty warrior. Sometimes I think that sermons are usually not directed at you all, but sometimes directed towards the speaker. And this is something that has reached into me as we start closing up our sermon. Over the last few weeks, I think about some of my colleagues, some of the talents and abilities that they've been given, the charisma. The last few days, I talked to a former colleague and just the job opportunities that they were given. It's a heck of a lot of money and a very prestigious law firm, and I start wondering why I don't have those skills. Why I don't have those abilities. Why don't those opportunities come to me? And so maybe this last point I'm preaching to myself. That God has formed me for a very specific purpose. And He's formed you for that too. That I can appreciate what God is doing in my friends' and my colleagues' life, but I shouldn't be jealous of the talents and skills and abilities and opportunities that God has given them, because that is for them, that is not for me, and God has something else in store. That God is specifically molding and forming and knitting me to His purpose and His calling, and for His will be done. Prayer lets God form us, and not those colleagues, not those opportunities, not the news, not what we read or see on social media. Prayer lets God form me and nothing else. There is no hide and seek with God. There is no where's Waldo or finding him. There's no wondering where in the world is Carmen Sandiego. God is present in your life in this moment and every moment. That God knows you intimately. God is forming you into his purpose for your life. As we close on this series on prayer through the Psalms, I hope that we have learned things like confession and thanksgiving, praying for others, placing our trust in God, and realizing that God is always present at all times and knows us intimately. And I pray that our prayer lives are much more fuller and more fulfilling as we realize what God has taught us and told us working through the Psalms. There is no hide and seek with God. He is always present.